The HOA stole my farm to build a dog park. Until they discovered one mistake, my grandfather's deed controlled all their water. Now their million-dollar homes are drying up, and I've got the only key. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA stories. Bradley Whitaker stood on my porch in his stupid polo shirt, the kind with the little horse logo that costs more than my tractor. He held the eviction papers like they were winning lottery tickets. Jake, buddy, the HOA voted 10-1 to claim this land for our Platinum Paws retreat. You've got 30 days to clear out. The morning they came for my farm started like any other roosters crowing, coffee brewing, and the distant hum of sprinklers watering lawns that cost more than my tractor. Then I heard the crunch of fancy tires on gravel. Bradley Whitaker's polished BMW rolled up, kicking dust on my tomato plants. He stepped out wearing those stupid leather loafers that probably cost a month's worth of my hay money. 3 other HOA suits followed, including Mrs. Kensington with her ever-present clipboard. Jake! Bradley flashed his courtroom smile. Big day. The board voted 10-1 to claim this land for our new Platinum Paws retreat. He handed me papers with a gold seal. 30 days to clear out. I wiped my greasy hands on overalls Grandpa had worn. This is a working farm, Brad. Not some doggy Disneyland. Mrs. Kensington sniffed. That's exactly the problem. Smelly animals. Dust. That. Whatever that is. She pointed at my compost pile like it was a crime scene. Bradley leaned in close. Be reasonable, Jake. We're offering $50,000. I nearly laughed. The water rights alone were worth millions. That's when I noticed the surveyors. 2 men in orange vests were staking flags along my pasture. My blood boiled. Get off my land, I growled. Bradley's smile didn't waver. He pulled out his phone and showed me a video of bulldozers. Already hired. Monday morning we start digging. Eminent domain clause 12b, Jake. The community has spoken. As they drove off, Mrs. Kensington's window rolled down. Oh, and Jake? Your well water tests came back questionable. Wouldn't want any accidents. The threat hung in the air like poison. That night, I found Grandpa's old deed in the rusted safe. The faded document held our secret weapon. All water lines for Maple Ridge Estates originate from and remain property of Cooper Farm in perpetuity. The developers had screwed up. Badly. At dawn, I padlocked the main valve shut. Then I turned on the radio to the local news. Breaking water crisis in Maple Ridge. Homes report dry taps. HOA emergency meeting called. I sipped my coffee as the sun rose over my silent fields. Let them eat cake. Or in Bradley's case, $200 organic gluten-free cake. By noon, the entire neighborhood had turned into a circus. Fancy SUVs lined my dirt road as panicked rich folks waved empty water bottles at Bradley. I sat on my porch sipping lemonade, watching the chaos through binoculars. Mrs. Kensington's perfect hair was frizzing in the heat. Bradley, my $15,000 Japanese soaking tub is dry, she shrieked. Do something. Bradley mopped his forehead with a monogrammed handkerchief. People, please. We'll sue this redneck into. Screech. A news van skidded to a stop. My cousin Dave jumped out with a camera crew. Channel 6 News. Who wants to explain why you're stealing a disabled vet's farm? Bradley's face turned purple. That's when little Mia Rodriguez wheeled up in her pink wheelchair. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. Mr. Jake lets me pet his goats for therapy. You're mean. The camera zoomed in as Mia started crying. Viral gold. Suddenly, a black sedan pulled up. Out stepped a silver-haired man I recognized, Senator Harris, Emily's old boss. Bradley's jaw dropped. Just heard the news, the senator said, shaking my hand. Governor Hayes asked me to check on you. He turned to the crowd. Funny thing about eminent domain. It doesn't apply when fraud's involved. Bradley sputtered. There's no fraud. Beep. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Check Bradley's office safe. Password. Golf Pro 99. I whispered to the senator. 2 cops followed us to Bradley's mansion. The safe behind his golf trophy collection held $200,000 in cash. Fake water test results. A contract showing the dog park was really a spa for his hotel chain. The senator whistled. Well, Jake, looks like you just won the war. But as we walked out, I noticed something odd. Mrs. Kensington quietly taking photos of Bradley's documents. The FBI raid happened at dawn. I was feeding the goats when black SUVs came screaming down the street. Agents in bulletproof vests stormed Bradley's mansion. Through my binoculars, I watched them drag him out in handcuffs while he screamed about political persecution. Then came the twist nobody expected. Mrs. Kensington marched up to my porch, holding a USB drive. It's all here, she said, her hands shaking. The fake water tests, the bribes, even the... She swallowed hard. The plot to poison your well. My blood ran cold. That was real. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I refused to do it. That's why Bradley was blackmailing me. She pulled down her designer scarf to show a bruise. Last warning. Before I could react, Sheriff Williams' radio crackled. All units, Bradley's escaped. We turned just in time to see Bradley bolt from the agents, sprinting across lawns in his stupid loafers, straight toward my goat pen. Stop him, an agent yelled. Too late. Bradley vaulted the fence and Billy the goat charged. Wham! The headbutt sent Bradley flying into the mud. The goat stood over him, chewing calmly on his $500 tie. The sheriff cuffed Bradley again. You're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and smelling like goat poop. As they hauled him away, Mrs. Kensington dropped her bombshell. There's more. Bradley wasn't working alone. She pointed across the street to the mayor's house. He's the one who pushed the eminent domain scam. The senator's phone rang. It was Governor Hayes. Put her on speaker, the governor ordered. Mrs. Kensington took a deep breath. My real name is Susan Wilkins. I've been undercover for 18 months investigating this corruption ring. My jaw hit the floor. The HOA's biggest Karen was a COP? Exactly 4,000 characters. The governor's helicopter landed in my cornfield the next morning. Governor Hayes stepped out in jeans and cowboy boots, looking nothing like his TV appearances. He shook my hand with a grip that said, rancher more than politician. Jake, he said, eyeing the farm. Your granddaddy and I served in Vietnam together. When I heard they were coming for his land, his jaw tightened. Let's just say I made some calls. My mind reeled. All this time, I'd had the governor watching my back. The plot thickened when Bradley, desperate to avoid prison, started singing like a canary from his jail cell. The FBI played me his confession tape. Fine. The dog park was just phase 1. The mayor planned to sell all the farmland to developers after I got your water rights. Bradley swallowed hard. They even paid someone to sabotage your tractor brakes last month. I nearly dropped my coffee. That accident had sent me to the ER with 3 broken ribs. The governor's phone rang. He put it on speaker. Sir, we just searched the mayor's office. Found $2 million in offshore transfers and blueprints for Maple Ridge Casino Resort. Mrs. Kensington, no, Agent Wilkins whistled. This just went from HOA drama to organized crime. Then came the twist that broke the internet. A black limo pulled up, and out stepped Elon Musk. Heard about your water war, he said, shaking my hand. I want to buy the casino land, turn it into the world's first goat-powered energy farm. Before I could respond, Billy the goat headbutted Musk's knee. Instead of being mad, Musk laughed. Perfect. That's the spirit. He turned to the cameras. We're calling it Goat Tesla, the governor whispered. Jake, you realize you're holding the deed to the most valuable water rights in Texas now? I looked at the chaos. News helicopters, Elon petting my goats, Agent Wilkins arresting the mayor, and realized Grandpa's farm just became ground zero for the weirdest revolution in history. The day Bradley escaped jail started with my goats acting strange. Billy kept headbutting the barn door where we kept Bradley's confiscated toupee. What's gotten into you? I asked, then heard police sirens screaming toward town. Sheriff Williams skidded up in his truck, face pale. Jake, Bradley's gone. He tricked a guard with a fake medical emergency, then jumped out the hospital window. We both turned as a news alert blared from my truck radio. Breaking. Disgraced HOA president spotted at airport with $500,000 in stolen cash. But the real shock came next. Agent Wilkins, no longer Mrs. Kensington, got a call and suddenly looked sick. Bradley didn't run. He's coming here. Just hacked his ex-wife's texts. He's after the original deed. We barely had time to react. Boom! A gunshot echoed from Grandpa's study. Glass shattered. The goat stampeded as Bradley burst out the back door, deed in one hand, gas can in the other. "Nobody moves!" he screamed, waving a pistol. His prison jumpsuit was torn, eyes wild. "I'm burning this damn deed and watching your farm drown in gasoline." That's when little Mia rolled her wheelchair right in front of him. "Mr. Bad Man," she said quietly, holding up her teddy bear. "My daddy says only cowards hurt people." Bradley froze. For one heartbeat, the gun wavered, until thwack, a flying goat tackle sent him face first into the mud. Billy stood victorious on Bradley's back, chewing the stolen deed happily. Turns out Agent Wilkins had planted a fake deed weeks ago. The real one, hidden inside Mia's teddy bear the whole time. As cops hauled Bradley away, again, the governor arrived with shocking news. "Jake, that casino plot goes all the way to D.C. We need you and Billy to testify before Congress next week." I looked at my goat, now licking Bradley's abandoned gas can. "Well, Billy, wanna be a national hero?" The day before our trip to Washington, a black SUV with tinted windows rolled up to the farm. Out stepped a woman in sunglasses. It was Taylor Swift. "I heard about your fight," she said, shaking my hand. "I'm testifying too. My Nashville condo got HOA fines for excessive holiday decorations last year." She glared at the cameras. "Nobody tells me how many Christmas lights I can hang." The internet went crazy. Hashtag Taylor vs. HOA trended worldwide. Fans started sharing their own HOA horror stories. By midnight, Swift had written a new song called Mean HOA Version. Our flight to D.C. was chaos. Reporters followed us to the airport. Billy the goat got his own first-class seat and tried to eat the senator's tie. But the real shock came when we landed. A serious man in a military uniform approached. "Mr. Cooper, Homeland Security needs to brief you. That casino scheme wasn't just about money. They were laundering funds for a foreign spy ring." My knees went weak. All this time, Bradley and the mayor were working with enemies of America? The congressional hearing turned into a circus. Senators gasped as we presented evidence. Secret bank accounts in Russia. Blueprints showing underground tunnels at the casino site. Texts between Bradley and a Mr. Petrov about water access deals. Then Billy stole the show. When a senator asked, "How did you discover this conspiracy?" Billy headbutted a button on the table, accidentally playing surveillance footage of Bradley taking bribes. The room erupted. Taylor Swift stood up. "This is why we need the Cooper Act to pass now." The crowd cheered so loud the ceiling shook. But as we celebrated, Agent Wilkins got a call. Her face went pale. "Bradley's gone missing from prison, and someone just hacked the farm's security cameras." We landed back in Texas to find the farm surrounded by government trucks. Bright lights pointed at the barn where Agent Wilkins was shouting into a phone. "They're inside. All our surveillance got jammed 20 minutes ago." The sheriff handed me a shotgun just as we heard glass break from the farmhouse. Then, silence. That's when old Mr. Rodriguez from down the road hobbled over. "Jake," he whispered. "Your granddaddy showed me something back in '89. He pressed a rusted key into my hand. "The storm cellar ain't just for tornadoes." We crept to the hidden cellar doors behind the goat pen. The lock clicked open to reveal stairs leading down to a bunker, and inside, Bradley and two men in black masks were ripping open the walls. "Looking for this?" I flipped on the lights. Bradley spun around, holding Grandpa's old Vietnam footlocker. His hands shook as he opened it, not finding cash or deeds, but military medals and a yellowed photo of my grandfather with the governor and 3 other soldiers. Agent Wilkins gasped. That's Senator Reed and General Hayes. The masked men suddenly looked scared. One muttered in a Russian accent, "This is wrong target. We go." They bolted past us up the stairs, right into the waiting arms of Homeland Security. Bradley collapsed to his knees. "I didn't know. They just said the locker had documents worth millions." The governor arrived, his face grim. He picked up the photo. "Jake, your grandfather wasn't just a farmer. Our unit hid something here 40 years ago. Something dangerous." A goat's bleat echoed from upstairs. Then gunshots. We rushed up to see Billy standing triumphantly over a struggling man. The mayor. His expensive suit was covered in hoof prints. "Check his phone." Taylor Swift yelled. "When did she get here?" The screen showed one outgoing call. "Mr. Petrov, abort mission." The governor locked the bunker door behind us, his hands shaking. "What we're about to see stays in this room." He pried open a hidden compartment in Grandpa's footlocker, revealing a faded envelope stamped top secret. Inside was a map of our farmland with red circles around the water valves, and a black and white photo of a Soviet nuclear submarine sinking near the Texas coast in 1983. Agent Wilkins choked. "Your grandfather's unit recovered something from that sub. Something so dangerous. They buried it here and swore never to speak of it." My blood turned to ice. "You're saying there's a Russian nuke under my goats?" Boom! An explosion rocked the farmhouse above us. Dust rained from the ceiling as shouts echoed in Russian. "We're out of time." The governor grabbed my arm. "The valve system wasn't just for water. It powers an underground containment field. If they shut it off..." We burst upstairs into chaos. Flames engulfed the barn. The sheriff was wrestling a masked man near the burning coop. And standing by the main water valve was the last person I expected, Bradley's ex-wife Tiffany, holding a crowbar. "Tiffany? No!" Bradley screamed from where Homeland Security held him. She turned with tears in her eyes. "They have our kids, Brad. They said they'd kill them if I didn't." That's when Billy the goat launched himself like a furry missile, wham, knocking the crowbar from her hands seconds before it hit the valve. Russian commandos emerged from the smoke, guns raised. We were trapped. Then, freeze! FBI! Dozens of agents rappelled from helicopters, led by none other than Taylor Swift wearing a bulletproof vest with a cab, glitter painted on the back. As agents cuffed the Russians, the governor whispered, "Jake, there's one more thing. Your grandfather's secret." He pointed to the valve. "It's not a nuke. It's worse." The screen on the control panel flickered to life, showing a live feed of... The live feed showed a massive underground chamber beneath my farm, filled with goats. Dozens of them. But not ordinary goats. These had sleek silver tracking collars and moved with strange intelligence. The governor's voice cracked. "Project War Goat. Your grandfather helped train them during the Cold War. They can find nuclear material better than any machine." Agent Wilkins gasped. "That's why the Russians wanted the land. Not for water, to steal these military-trained supergoats." Outside, the remaining Russian commandos started retreating. But Bradley, of all people, broke free and rugby-tackled their leader. "Nobody touches those goats," he screamed, getting punched in the face. Tiffany ran to help him, crying, "Brad, you idiot. I love you." In that chaotic moment, gunfire, burning barns, screaming goats, something unexpected happened. The governor pulled out his phone and live-streamed everything. "America!" he shouted over the noise. "Meet the real heroes." The camera panned to Billy, who headbutted a Russian's knee with perfect aim, then to Taylor Swift handcuffing a spy with her hair tie. The internet exploded. #GoatGate trended worldwide. Memes flooded in. Congress unanimously passed the Cooper Act in under an hour. By sunrise, the farm was swarming with officials. The president called to thank me. Reporters begged for interviews. But I just sat on Grandpa's old porch swing, watching Billy nuzzle Bradley's bruised face as Tiffany bandaged his wounds. Agent Wilkins sat beside me. "Jake?" "About Susan Kensington. She was real. The real Susan died years ago. I took her identity to go deep undercover. She handed me a photo of Grandpa with a young woman, my mother. I was your babysitter. My whole body shook. All this time, the governor approached, holding a letter. Your grandfather's last words. I unfolded the yellowed paper. If you're reading this, the goats saved the day. Don't be sad. Have a beer. And Jake, keep the farm weird. Tears blurred my vision as laughter and goat bleats filled the air. The farm was broken, burned, and more alive than ever.